she shouted. "Don't touch me. You look ridiculous," in front of 200 people at her company dinner, and that public humiliation was only the beginning. When I uncovered her secret phone and saw she'd siphoned $42,000 from our accounts, I realized my wife wasn't merely unfaithful. She'd been running an elaborate con for years, with her boss's billionaire wife somehow woven into the scheme. My name is Damon Croft. I'm 43, and this is how the woman I married tore apart our life in plain sight, and how I finally found the courage to fight back. It all unraveled on a Tuesday in March. Megan's architecture firm held its annual awards dinner at the Grandview Hotel downtown, and she'd been fussing about it for weeks, insisting I wear my best suit and reminding me to act appropriately around her colleagues. I should have asked what appropriate meant, but I didn't. I just wanted to be there for my wife. The ballroom was filled with Portland's design elite, crystal chandeliers sparkling, expensive wine flowing, everything a place like that should have. Megan was breathtaking in a black dress she'd bought just for the night, and I walked beside her proud, playing the supportive husband role I'd learned over the years. Everything seemed normal until dinner began. I sat next to Megan as her boss, Xavier Blackwood, spoke about innovation and excellence, and I noticed she kept checking her phone, smiling at messages I couldn't see. "Honey, who keeps texting you?" I asked softly, reaching to touch her hand. Her reaction was immediate and violent. She yanked her hand away as if I'd burned her, sprang to her feet so fast her chair nearly tipped over, and screamed, "Don't touch me!" Her voice carried across the ballroom. "You look absolutely ridiculous sitting there acting like we're some happy couple." The room fell silent. Conversations stopped. All eyes swung to our table. My face felt like it was on fire. But instead of collapsing, something in me steadied. I rose slowly, met her gaze, and said plainly, "You know what, Megan? You're not worth this." Then I left. No shouting, no spectacle. Just walking out and leaving her standing there with her mouth open in front of 200 people. I drove straight home but didn't go inside. I sat in my truck in the driveway, hands trembling, trying to make sense of what had just happened after 15 years of marriage and a public humiliation I couldn't fathom. Why had she done it? What had I done wrong? Then I replayed Xavier's look during Megan's outburst. Not shocked, not embarrassed, but guilty, and the pieces began to click together. I stepped out of the truck and went around back to the converted garage where Megan kept her home office. She'd always guarded that space jealously, saying she needed privacy for client work, and I respected that boundary for years, until tonight. The spare key was where she always hid it, under the fake rock beside the office door. My hands shook as I unlocked it and went inside. The smell of her pricey candles hit me the same as always, but tonight it felt claustrophobic instead of comforting. I had been in that room maybe 5 times in 15 years. She insisted it was her sanctuary, a creative place where she could not be interrupted. Now I understood why. Her desk was immaculate, everything in its place, but a charging cable plugged into the wall behind her computer with no phone attached caught my eye. Odd, since Megan used wireless charging for her iPhone. I began opening drawers without really knowing what I was searching for. The top ones held typical office stuff, supplies, business cards, fabric samples. But in the bottom drawer, hidden beneath a stack of old architectural magazines, I found something that chilled me through, a second phone. An Android, not an iPhone, warm like it had been used moments ago. My heart pounded as I picked it up and the screen lit instantly, no lock. The top conversation was active 20 minutes earlier, right around the time Megan had screamed at me in that ballroom. Xavier's message read, "How did it go with the husband tonight?" Megan replied, "Perfect. He's completely clueless. Won't be a problem much longer." Xavier wrote back, "Can't wait to have you all to myself," and Megan answered, "Soon, baby. Very soon." Xavier Blackwood, Megan's boss and the man who had looked guilty during the scene, was messaging her. I scrolled through weeks of exchanges that got worse with each swipe. They weren't simply having an affair. They were carefully plotting to destroy my marriage. There were texts about transferring money from our joint accounts, plans for Megan to file for divorce and claim I was emotionally abusive, and jokes about how pathetic and trusting I was. One thread from last week made my stomach turn. Megan had texted, "He actually thanked me for working late again. The fool has no idea I'm with you," and Xavier had replied, "Poor bastard. At least he's useful for paying the bills while we figure this out." Megan's cold answer, "Not much longer. I'm getting tired of pretending." I sat there in her chair staring at a phone that held the blueprint for the ruin of everything I thought I had. 15 years of marriage, and I'd been a fool footing the bills while my wife planned my replacement. As I read on, the shock deepened. This wasn't Xavier's first time either. Messages referenced his wife, Vivian, who had no idea. Vivian Blackwood was a major player in Portland's business scene, powerful enough to obliterate careers if she ever learned the truth. My phone buzzed with a text from Megan. "Where did you go? We need to talk about your embarrassing behavior tonight." My embarrassing behavior. I almost laughed. Instead, I took screenshots of every conversation on that phone and returned it exactly where I'd found it. Walking back to my truck, I felt altered, not broken, not defeated, but angry and unervingly clear-headed. For the first time in a long while, I knew precisely what I was facing. Megan wanted to play games. Fine, she just handed me the rules. I didn't go home that night. I drove to my sister Isabella's place across town. She opened the door in a robe, saw my face, and dragged me inside without a single question. "Coffee or something stronger?" she asked, leading me to the kitchen. "Coffee." "I need to think clearly," I said, sinking into a chair. Isabella had always been wary of Megan, polite outwardly but wary inside. Something about Megan felt too calculating, always centering herself. I should have listened. I told Isabella everything, the public humiliation, finding the secret phone, the messages. She listened without interrupting, her face darkening with each detail. "Damien, you need to check your finances right now," she said when I finished. "If they're planning what you think, the money is probably already moving." She was right. I pulled up our bank accounts on my phone and felt my stomach drop. Our joint savings that had held $42,000 last week now showed $800. Multiple transfers had been made to an unfamiliar account. I stopped myself from finishing the thought out loud. Isabella leaned in. "When did the transfers happen?" she asked. "Over the last month, small amounts at first, then bigger sums. The largest was yesterday, $15,000. Right before the big public scene," she noted, covering her tracks before burning the bridge. My phone buzzed again. "Megan, I'm home now. Where are you? We need to discuss what happened tonight like adults." I showed Isabella the message. She rolled her eyes. "Adults don't steal from their spouses," she said. "What are you going to do?" That question hung in the air. The old Damien would have gone home, apologized for leaving, and tried to patch things up. But the old Damien didn't know his wife was a thief and a liar. "I'm going to fight back," I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. "But first, I need more information." I opened my laptop and started digging into Xavier Blackwood and his wife, Vivian. What I found was telling. Vivian wasn't just successful. She was Portland's most influential development consultant, connected to city council and major projects, with a spotless public reputation and a ferocious protectiveness over her marriage and career. She had no idea what her husband was doing, I told Isabella, and if she found out, it would ruin both of them. Isabella's grim smile told me she saw opportunity. "Sounds like leverage," she said. I spent the night on her couch mapping out a plan. By morning I had a strategy. Megan and Xavier thought they were playing a private game, but it was time to change the players. The next morning Isabella made breakfast while I checked my phone to find 17 missed calls from Megan and dozens of texts swinging from concerned to angry to manipulative. The latest read, "Damien, you're scaring me. Please come home so we can work this out. I love you." Classic manipulation, Isabella observed as she read over my shoulder. She reminded me that our mother had used the same tactics, cheating and manipulation when Isabella and I were teens, and the parallel stopped me cold. "Is that why you never trusted Megan?" I asked. Isabella nodded. "Secrecy, sudden obsession with appearance, making everything my fault. I've waited 15 years for this conversation," she said. "Why didn't you tell me before?" I told her I had hoped I was wrong. I called in sick to work, a half-truth, and instead drove with Isabella to the bank. Mrs. Rodriguez, the branch manager, knew me. I'd banked there for over a decade. I explained the transfers and showed the statements. Mrs. Rodriguez pulled up our account history and confirmed what I feared. All withdrawals were authorized with correct passwords and security answers. The receiving account belonged to Blackwood Holdings LLC, Xavier's company. They hadn't even tried to hide it. Can I freeze the account? I asked. You can freeze your access, she said, but because it's a joint account your wife can still use it unless you file for legal separation. I thanked her and stepped outside with Isabella. Legal separation, she said. That's the next step. I wasn't ready to jump to that yet. I needed to understand the full scope. My phone rang. Unknown number. Is this Damon Croft? A professional voice asked. Yes, who's this? I replied. My name is Vivian Blackwood. I believe we need to talk about our spouses. The line went quiet except for the thud of my own heart. Xavier's wife knew. How did you get this number? I managed. I have resources, Mr. Croft, she said. I have information you'll find interesting. Can you meet me this afternoon? I glanced at Isabella, who was listening intently. Where? I asked. Pioneer Courthouse Square. 2 o'clock, she said. I'll be in a red coat with a black briefcase. The call ended, and Isabella stared. This just got a lot more complicated, she said, but also more promising. For the first time since the nightmare began, I felt I might not be alone. Pioneer Courthouse Square was crowded at 2, office workers on lunch, tourists snapping pictures, until I spotted Vivian Blackwood, a striking woman in a red coat with a black briefcase, exactly like the headshot I'd found online, but with a harder, colder edge the photos hadn't shown. Mr. Croft, she said as I approached. Please, call me Vivian, she corrected when I reached for her hand. After all, we're dealing with the same problem. She opened her briefcase and handed me a manila folder. I've been suspicious of Xavier for months, she said without preamble. Late nights, secret calls, sudden vanity, but she needed proof before acting. Inside were photos, Xavier and Megan entering hotels, kissing in his car, dining at upscale restaurants while I worked late. How long have you known? I asked. 3 weeks, she replied. I hired a private investigator after his mysterious business trips began appearing off the company calendar. I studied the pictures and felt a complex knot of anger and relief. At least I wasn't imagining things. What do you want from me? I asked. Vivian's smile was sharp. Xavier thinks he's clever, using company funds to finance his affair, she said. What he doesn't see is that I control the majority stake in Blackwood Holdings. I've documented unauthorized expenses, hotel charges, gifts, dining. The money that left your account went into a company account I monitor. Xavier has been stealing to fund his romance. What's your plan? I asked. Mutually assured destruction, she said calmly. I'm filing for divorce and taking the company. Xavier will be left with nothing. Your wife will discover her sugar daddy is bankrupt. Then she looked up, direct. I need your testimony about the stolen money. With your screenshots and our evidence, we can prove a pattern of fraud. Xavier won't only lose his marriage, he could face criminal charges. I thought about Megan's messages, her public humiliation, the way she'd drained our accounts. I'm in, I said. What's next? Vivian closed her briefcase. I'm confronting Xavier tonight, she said. Do the same with your wife, but don't tip them off about our alliance. Let them think they're still in control. We parted with something I hadn't felt in ages, the thrill of being offensive rather than forever on defense. I arrived home at 7 to find Megan in the kitchen cooking my favorite meal, steak and mashed potatoes, wearing the blue dress I'd bought her for our anniversary, makeup flawless, staging a magazine-perfect scene to manipulate me back into submission. Damien, honey, you're home, she said and rushed for a hug. I didn't return it. We need to talk, Megan, I said. Her face shifted, but she kept smiling. Of course. Let me finish dinner and we'll sit and talk, she replied. I know about Xavier, I said quietly. The wooden spoon clattered to the floor. What are you talking about? She demanded, but her voice wavered. The loving act had slid away. Her tone hardened. I pulled out my phone and showed her one of the screenshots from her secret device. Her face blanched. Where did you get that? She whispered. Does it matter? I asked. I know about the affair, Megan. I know about the money you've been stealing from our accounts. I know about your plans to file for divorce and claim I'm abusive. Her mask fell away completely. You went through my private things, she accused, voice icy. You violated my privacy. Your privacy? I laughed, and it felt good. You've been plotting to wreck my life for months and now you care about privacy? She changed tactics, trying to reason. Damien, you don't understand, Xavier and it's complicated. I cut her off. No, it's simple. You're cheating. You're stealing. You're a liar. Megan's eyes flashed. Fine. You want the truth? Xavier makes me feel alive. He's ambitious, successful, exciting, everything you're not. I reached into the folder of legal papers I'd prepared that afternoon and laid them on the kitchen counter. Here's something exciting for you, I said. I'm freezing our joint accounts, filing for legal separation, and Vivian Blackwood is taking control of Xavier's assets. Vivian knows about your affair. She's documented everything. The stolen money, the company funds he used to pay for your little romance. He's about to lose his business, his marriage, and face fraud charges. Megan's confidence crumbled. You're bluffing, she said. Call him, I replied. Ask him how his conversation with Vivian went tonight. Her hand trembled as she grabbed her phone. It rang several times before going to voicemail. He's probably explaining to lawyers why he embezzled company funds to buy you jewelry, I said. Megan called again. Still no answer. This isn't over, she told me, voice edged with panic. You're right, I said, moving toward the door. It's just beginning. You wanted excitement. Congratulations. You are about to find out what it feels like to lose everything. I left her amid the ruins of her staged meal, and for the first time in 15 years I walked away. I spent the night at Isabella's and slept for the first time in months, feeling like I was moving forward instead of merely surviving Megan's next manipulation. The next morning Isabella made coffee while I checked my phone. Unusually, there were no messages from Megan. Maybe she's finally getting the message, Isabella murmured. My phone rang. Unknown number again. Damon Croft speaking. Mr. Croft, this is Trainon Hogref. I think we need to talk about your wife. I nearly dropped the phone. Isabella leaned forward, eyebrows raised. Who is this? I asked. Trainon Hogref. I was married to Megan before you, he replied. The world tilted. Megan had never told me she'd been married before. That's impossible, I said. Trainon explained she had been married to him from 2006 to 2008 and that their marriage ended when he discovered her affair with her boss. The pattern was repeating. Why didn't she tell me? I asked. Trainon said Megan had a selective relationship with Truth and had followed the same playbook. Marry a stable man, have an affair with a powerful colleague, drain joint accounts, file for divorce, and move on to the next victim. He'd kept records from their divorce, financial statements, filings, witness statements, and offered to meet. Powell's books on Burnside, 2 o'clock, he suggested. After the call, I filled Isabella in and she grew darker with every detail. This isn't just an affair, she said. It's her operating procedure. If there was a pattern, I thought, there might be legal consequences Megan hadn't considered. My phone buzzed with a text from Vivian Blackwood. Xavier lost his job this morning. The company board removed him after reviewing financial evidence. He's being investigated for embezzlement. How did things go with your wife? I showed Isabella the message and she smiled, grim. Looks like their love nest just lost its funding. I replied, Megan filed for divorce yesterday. I'm meeting her first husband this afternoon. Vivian answered immediately, excellent. The more evidence of habitual behavior, the stronger our case. Powell's books was crowded, but I spotted Trainon immediately. Older, worn, steady, the kind of man Megan seemed to target. We shook hands and sat. He told me their story, meeting in 2005 at an architecture firm, marrying after 8 months, the first year good, then late nights, secret calls, distance. He had trusted her completely until he didn't. He pulled out a manila folder containing their divorce paperwork and financial records. The pattern mirrored my own, draining joint accounts prior to filing and accusing the husband of emotional abuse to justify her claims. He told me Richard Kellerman, the boss he had the affair with, had been exposed later when his wife found out and ruined him professionally. Megan had moved on to Portland, changed her image, and found another stable man to exploit. We compared notes for an hour, and the parallels were undeniable. Judges don't like repeat offenders, Trainon said. If we could present this as a pattern rather than an isolated marital breakdown, it would change everything legally. "Will you testify?" he asked. "Absolutely," I replied. Walking back to my car, I felt something I hadn't felt since this began: hope. Megan had assumed I'd fold like everyone else, but she had miscalculated. 3 days after meeting Trainon, I was preparing for my divorce hearing when Megan knocked on Isabella's door looking fragile and pleading. Isabella left us alone and Megan admitted, "I'm pregnant." 8 weeks, she said, her voice trembling. The words hit me like a physical blow. The timing lined up with when she was regularly meeting Xavier. "Is it mine?" I asked bluntly. Her face flushed. "Of course it's yours. How can you even ask?" she protested. I suggested a paternity test now. Non-invasive at 10 weeks. She looked terrified. Before I could press, Vivian called with news. Xavier had been arrested for embezzlement. The FBI had evidence he'd run schemes for years, using multiple women to drain accounts. Megan's claim of pregnancy fit into a broader pattern that tied her to a long-term operation rather than a simple affair. I returned to Megan and told her firmly we would do a paternity test and, depending on the result, discuss co-parenting, but the marriage was over. She had chosen betrayal. She cried, but I felt only pity. The woman I'd loved for 15 years had been a mask. 6 months later I sat in a small apartment across town, Chester the orange tabby purring in my lap. The paternity test confirmed my suspicion. The baby was Xavier's. That fact complicated Xavier's legal nightmare since he faced federal embezzlement charges, and Megan's attempt to claim I was the father on legal documents collapsed under DNA evidence. The divorce moved quickly once Trennan's testimony and the financial fraud evidence were presented. Megan received no spousal support and only a minimal portion of assets. The judge was unimpressed with her pattern of draining joint accounts. Xavier was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison. Vivian divorced him and took control of the assets, and her testimony helped convict him on multiple fraud counts involving other victims. Megan gave birth to a daughter 3 months ago. Xavier will pay child support from prison while Megan works a retail job in a small apartment. Her dreams of wealth and excitement reduced to the reality of single motherhood and a convicted co-parent. I felt no triumph in her fall, only relief that I had been untangled from her web. Isabella brought dinner and updates on her life and told me I looked healthier. "I feel like myself for the first time in years," I said. "When you stop walking on eggshells, you remember who you are." My phone buzzed. Another unknown number. Sarah Mitchell, who'd gotten my contact from Trainon, reached out saying she needed to hear my story. Apparently there were more victims, and people had been calling me for months. I replied, "Happy to meet for coffee." Isabella raised an eyebrow. "Another one?" "Looks like helping others avoid this is becoming my mission," I told her. She agreed it was a good mission. Sitting in my modest, honest apartment, I recognized I had lost a marriage but gained something more valuable: the knowledge that I deserved better and the strength to demand it. Chester purred louder, and I smiled. Sometimes the best revenge is simply living well. The end of the story comes with an unfinished thread. My investigation into Xavier's trips and secret expenses was just getting started when I discovered patterns of mysterious business travel that weren't on his. I went through the photos and felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: equal parts furious and oddly relieved. At least now there was proof I wasn't losing my mind. "What do you want from me?" I asked. Vivian's smile cut sharp. "Xavier thinks he's clever, using company funds to wine and dine your wife," she said. "What he doesn't know is I control the majority stake in Blackwood Holdings. I've been tracking every unauthorized expense." She slid another document across the bench. Financial records showing thousands charged to restaurants, hotels, and expensive gifts. "The transfers came from your account," she said. "They routed into a company ledger I monitor. Xavier has been siphoning company money to bankroll his affair." "So what's the plan?" I asked. "Mutually assured destruction," Vivian answered without emotion. "I'm filing for divorce and taking control of the company. Xavier will be left with nothing. Your wife will find out her sugar daddy is actually bankrupt." She looked me straight in the eye. "I need your testimony about the money taken from your accounts. With your screenshots and my financial records, we can show a pattern of fraud. Xavier won't just lose his marriage, he could face criminal charges." I thought of Megan's cruel texts, the way she humiliated me in front of 200 people, and I said, "I'm in. What's next?" Vivian snapped the briefcase shut. "I'm confronting Xavier tonight," she said. "You confront your wife, but don't let them know we're aligned." Let them believe they're still calling the shots. As we parted, a feeling I hadn't had in years rose up, the intoxicating rush of finally being on offense instead of always defending myself. I pulled into my driveway around 7 and stepped into a scene that looked staged, a kitchen straight out of a How to Revive Your Relationship spread. Megan was in the blue dress I'd bought her for our anniversary, makeup flawless, cooking my favorite dinner, steak and mashed potatoes. "Damien, honey, you're home," she cried, hurrying toward me for a hug. I didn't hug her back. "We need to talk, Megan," I said. Her smile faltered for a fraction, but she kept the act. "Just let me finish dinner and we'll sit down and work through it," she said. I told her quietly, "I know about Xavier." The wooden spoon clattered to the floor. Her voice changed. No more loving wife, the mask slipping. I pulled out my phone and showed her a screenshot from her secret Android. Her face went white. "Where did you get that?" she whispered. "Does it matter?" I said. "I know about the affair, Megan. I know about the money you've been stealing from our accounts. I know about your plan to file for divorce and frame me as abusive." Her expression hardened into something I barely recognized. "You went through my private things," she accused, cold. "You violated my privacy." I laughed, short, raw, and it felt like relief. "Your privacy? You've been plotting to destroy my life for months and now you care about privacy." She tried to switch tactics. "Damien, you don't understand, Xavier and it's complicated." "It's not complicated," I shot back. "You're cheating. You're stealing. You're a liar." Her eyes flashed with anger. "Fine," she snapped. "You want the truth? Xavier makes me feel alive. He's ambitious, successful, exciting, everything you're not." I reached into the folder of legal papers I'd prepared that afternoon and set them on the counter. "Here's something exciting for you," I said. "I'm freezing our joint accounts, filing for legal separation, and Vivian Blackwood is taking everything Xavier owns. Vivian knows about your affair. She's documented the stolen money and the company funds used to finance your romance. He's about to lose his business, his marriage, and face fraud charges." Megan's confidence crumbled. "You're bluffing," she said. "Call him," I replied. "Ask him how his conversation with Vivian went tonight." Her hand trembled as she dialed. The call rang and went to voicemail. "He's probably explaining to lawyers why he embezzled company funds to buy you jewelry," I said. She called again. Still no answer. "This isn't over," she pleaded, panic peeking through the desperation. "You're right," I said, heading for the door. "It's just beginning. You wanted excitement. Congratulations. You're about to find out what losing everything feels like." I left her in the ruined set of the dinner she'd prepared to manipulate me back into submission. For the first time in 15 years, I walked away. I slept at Isabella's that night and for the first time in months actually slept. In the morning she made coffee while I checked my phone. Nothing from Megan. Strange. She normally bombarded me after any confrontation. "Maybe she's finally getting the message," Isabella said, peering over my shoulder. Then my phone rang. An unknown number. "Damon Croft speaking." "Mr. Croft, this is Trainon Hogref. I think we need to talk about your wife." The line nearly dropped from my hand. Isabella raised an eyebrow. "Who is this?" I asked, stunned. Trainon explained he had been married to Megan from 2006 to 2008 and that their marriage ended when he discovered her affair with his boss. He'd been keeping tabs, not stalking, he insisted, just watching to see if she'd changed, and when he saw my name in the divorce filing she submitted yesterday he reached out. She filed for divorce yesterday, he said, claiming irreconcilable differences and emotional abandonment while requesting spousal support and half their assets. "Sound familiar?" he asked. My head spun. He wanted to meet. Powell's books on Burnside at 2. After I hung up, I told Isabella everything. Her face went darker with each detail. "This isn't just an affair," she said. "It's her operating procedure." The pattern was chilling. Marry a stable man, have an affair with a powerful colleague, drain the joint accounts, file for divorce, move on to the next victim. That day Trainon and I compared notes, and the parallels were unmistakable. He showed me manila folders from his divorce, financial records, filings, witness statements, and the same method surfaced. claims of emotional abuse and a strategic draining of accounts before filing. Judges don't like repeat offenders, he told me. If we can present this as a pattern, it changes everything legally. Will you testify? He asked. Absolutely, I said. For the first time since the nightmare began, hope threaded through me. Megan had assumed I'd fold like the others. She'd miscalculated. 3 days later, while I was preparing for the divorce hearing, Megan showed up at Isabella's door looking pale and fragile. Isabella left us alone. She sat on the couch and told me, "Damien, I'm pregnant." 8 weeks, she said, voice trembling. The words hit like a physical blow. The timing lined up with when she was regularly meeting Xavier. "Is it mine?" I asked bluntly. Her face flushed and she protested. "Of course it's yours. How can you even ask?" I suggested a paternity test now. Non-invasive at 10 weeks. She looked terrified. Then Vivian called with news. Xavier had been arrested for embezzlement. The FBI had found evidence he'd been running schemes for years, using multiple women to help drain accounts. Multiple women. At least 4 others over the past decade. "Your wife wasn't his first partner," Vivian said. "If the baby was Xavier's, that created extra legal complications. Financial responsibility during incarceration and a stronger case that this was a calculated, long-term operation rather than a simple affair." I told Megan firmly we would do the paternity test and, depending on the result, discuss co-parenting, but the marriage was over. That moment she had chosen betrayal. She cried. I felt only pity. The woman I'd loved for 15 years had been an illusion. 6 months later I sat in a modest apartment across town, a book in my hand in Chester, the orange tabby I adopted from the shelter, purring in my lap. The paternity test results confirmed what I suspected. The baby wasn't mine, she was Xavier's. That fact compounded Xavier's legal nightmare as federal embezzlement charges closed in. Megan's attempt to list me as the father on legal documents collapsed under DNA evidence. When Trennan's testimony and the financial fraud documentation were presented, the divorce moved swiftly. She received no spousal support and only a minimal asset share. The judge was unmoved by her history of draining joint accounts. Xavier was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison. Vivian divorced him and took control of their assets, and her testimony helped convict him on multiple fraud counts involving other victims. Megan gave birth to a daughter 3 months ago. Xavier will be sending child support from prison while Megan works a retail job in a small apartment. Her fantasies of wealth and excitement had shrunk to the reality of single motherhood and a convicted co-parent. I felt no glee in her fall, only relief at being untangled from her web of deception. Isabella knocked with dinner and the latest gossip about her own dating life. "You look good, Damien," she said as she set takeout on my small table. "Healthier, more yourself." "I feel like myself for the first time in years," I answered. "When you stop walking on eggshells, you remember who you really are." She asked if I was thinking about dating. I scratched Chester behind the ears and said maybe someday, but for now I was relearning how to trust my instincts. I ignored so many red flags with Megan because I wanted to believe in an illusion. Now I know the difference between love and manipulation, and that knowledge is worth more than any relationship I lost. My phone buzzed. Another unknown number. "Mr. Croft. This is Sarah Mitchell. I got your number from Train On. I need to hear about your experience with Megan." Apparently there were more victims contacting Train On and me. I replied, "Happy to help. Want to meet for coffee tomorrow?" Isabella watched me type and raised an eyebrow. "Another one?" she asked. I shrugged. "Looks like helping others avoid this is becoming my mission." She smiled. "That's a good mission," she said. In my honest little apartment, nothing fancy but peaceful, I realized she was right. I'd lost a marriage but gained something more valuable, the certainty that I deserved better and the strength to demand it. Chester purred louder and I smiled. Sometimes the best revenge is simply living well.